So some of the strategy here is, in the dark, you should probably just choose to take the play. That's what makes the most sense. It's unlikely you get boxed out of any one particular format, and so independent of some extreme variables, just choose to take the play. So what do you do when you're selecting the format? What you should probably do is take the matchup you feel is the most extreme, either the one where you're most advantaged or the one where you're most disadvantaged. Because that's going to be the one where losing the play draw matters the least in terms of your win equity. Dylan feels that he is a massive favorite in Legacy, so he's going to take Legacy as format. I think if the roles were reversed and Donegan chose to play, Tomajko would also choose Legacy for the opposite reason. The matchup is so bad for him that whether he's on the play or on the draw isn't going to really substantively change the shape of the games.
Now, I will say this. It's very, very important here for Dylan Donegan to win this matchup. This is where he is most favored across our 3 formats. Again, we're playing Standard, Modern, and Legacy best of 3 matches here, and we're going to play all the formats. Now that Legacy has been eliminated, we'll see if we go towards Modern or Standard next at the conclusion of this one. Of course, it will be the loser's choice, perhaps, again, because they have the option of playing or drawing or picking the format. So we start to work ourselves through the competition. Looks like Donegan's going to take a mulligan right away here. Again, Zan Said versus Edgar Magayesh is what Emma Handy and Matthias Hunt will be bringing you after this. And then Patrick and I will be in the booth to crown our champion and give away that $20,000 and the StarCityGames.com Players Championship belt.
And we've only got 3 matches today, but we should still have a full day of Magic coverage.
We should. All 3 formats, Standard, Modern, Legacy. For fans that love some Magic, are going to get a little bit of all of it here today. And it should be good.
May I say good morning, send some regards?
I'm not going to stop you.
Griffin, Vivian, good morning. Be sweet to mama. Carry on.
Can we continue the show?
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Gotta just say hi, you know.
No, I understand. Actually, I don't, because I'm not a parent.
If your folks are watching and you want to say,
first of all, they'd never be watching, and I would not say hi.
Yeah, my parents still are not quite sure what I do for a living.
Same.
Yeah.
I've been playing Magic for 20 years. My dad has driven to many Magic tournaments. They still aren't quite sure what I do.
My dad thinks that every weekend I'm just playing in a tournament. He's like, how did the tournament go? And I'm like, well, I mean, it was fine. You know, this was bad. This was good. And he's like, well,
first place again.
It's like, well, how'd you do? Well, I don't know. The check cleared, I guess. I don't know. I guess fine. I don't know.
I won again. I never stop winning. Yeah, my mom, someone at work, my mom works, she works with some younger folks, and one of them plays Magic, and they found out that I play Magic in there, and it was a lot for my mom to handle.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
I found out that my mom is a Reddit lurker.
Ooh.
She's like, they say such sweet things about you on Reddit. I was like, Mom, get off of there.
Yeah, don't go on
Get off of there. Don't click on anything. First of all, don't click on anything. And second, yeah.
Don't go on that website. We're underway.
I don't want you to see them say mean things about your boy.
Yeah. Misty Rainforest for each player to begin. Oliver has not sacrificed his, but Dylan has. He'll fall down to 19. That's an Underground Sea. We'll see if we be careful study. Stitcher Supplier. A lot of different options here for Dylan Donegan and his Hogak deck. There is Hedron Crab. Force of Will. Exiling Spell Pierce will take care of that. The idea here is to counter the enablers, really. Counter the engine cards.
Yeah, the hope here from Tomajko, this is the game plan. It's going to be hard, but here's the game plan. Hopefully Donegan's hand has one way to get the ball rolling. You can counter it or maybe remove it with something like Swords to Plowshares. Mm-hmm. And then a fast Monastery Mentor might be able to win the game before Donegan can reassemble.
3 cards headed to the graveyard there from the Hedron Crab. Will Donegan sacrifice the fetch land now or not? He will. And you see Donegan waiting to see if there will be a response, something like a Swords to Plowshares. Misty Rainforest will be sacrificed here by Tomajko, and the Swords will take care of that before the fetch land trigger resolves. So only 3 cards placed into the graveyard there for Dylan Donegan off the Hedron Crab.
We're back Legacy 5, 6, 7 years ago, the good old days, we saw a lot more Savannah Volcanic Island openings than we do nowadays.
Yeah, that's the old Savannah, huh?
It's 4 colors, no wasteland, so you're free to assemble your colors here.
I haven't seen Savannah in a hot minute.
No, it's one of the weaker ones. It's no plateau, but it doesn't get a lot of burn.
Donegan's follow-up. Stitcher Supplier, trigger 3 cards, and a 1. Bloodghast, Vengevine, Gravecrawler. Those are 3 good ones.
Yeah, those are some hits. A little bit of engine here.
Going back over to Tomajko, who does have a copy of Monastery Mentor in hand, picked up a copy of Supreme Verdict too, so that's a little bit polarizing because he'd like to do both things, but there is the Mentor. So, he'll pass the turn back, looking to draw some cantrips to get that online.
Well, the hope here is that the Monastery Mentor just forces enough expenditure of resources from Donegan that then he plays into the Supreme Verdict. You're right, it's a little bit odd, but also Tomajko can't even cast the Supreme Verdict right now, and he's got to cast something, so there you go.
A couple copies of Bloodghast have been placed into the graveyard. Here's another copy of Stitcher Supplier. So, Hogak into the graveyard. We got a bit of a runaway here, I think.
Yeah, we're going to be Gag Attacking, Vengevine, you know, everyone's favorite band of misfits.
There is Hogak. Here comes Vengevine beatdowns. No land, it looks like, for Donegan to get those Bloodghast back, but he'll find one eventually, probably, as we head back over to Tomajko. Tomajko will draw. Picked up a copy of Swords of Plowshares.
And now, you know, I mean, you can play land in Supreme Verdict, but a land gets the 2 Bloodghast back, and then the Bloodghast get the Hogak back. And then Vengevine probably comes back. So, you know, the matchup's hard. It's a hard matchup. Because Tomajko's cards do not work.
That makes it hard.
That makes it tough.
That makes it tough.
I mean, and Tomajko had a Force of Will this game and a fairly modest opening from Donegan, who had Mulligan. So, you know, it's tough. Tough out there. Tough all over.
All right, beatdowns.
Swords of Plowshares, not bad.
I mean, it's fine. It kills. You can exile Hogak, you get a 1/1, and your Monastery Mentor becomes a 3/3.
But it's just hard to, you know, Tomajko's now down to 1 card in hand, assuming that he casts the Swords of Plowshares. It's a Supreme Verdict, which gets rid of the Monastery Mentor as part of this. And so how do you stave things off? It's probably a string of cantrips to build up a battlefield and maybe even trying to get on the offensive here, because Tomajko can't hold off forever.
Now there's your blocks. It looks like a 3/3 Mentor is going to go in front of Stitcher Supplier. 1/1 Monk token will go in front of Vengevine, and there'll be a Stitcher Supplier trigger, so 3 cards are headed to the graveyard. Vengevine, Misty Rainforest, Bloodstained Mire go to the graveyard. The follow-up here. See what it is here for Donegan. Well, he taps some mana. You might be thinking otherwise now. He'll be going towards Gravecrawler. Play Gravecrawler from the graveyard. Trigger Vengevine. And, of course...
Good looking turn.
Yeah. To Supreme Verdict everything away.
Oh, yeah.
Snapcaster Mage the draw. I like starting things off with an attack.
I don't know. I think Donegan's going to block.
Well. How sure are you?
I mean, side bet?
Decline.
You want to put 5 on it?
Decline.
Okay.
All right, we pass. So that's Snap on Swords, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's still... I mean, it's not a bad turn. His deck can't produce that much better. It's just... It's being so overwhelmed by the resources here that Donegan's producing that even the good exchanges are just... You know, we saw the Swords of Plowshares in combat last turn. It looked pretty good. He got some good blocks, and this is what Donegan's battlefield looked like in the aftermath.
Here's Snapcaster Mage. There's the Swords of Plowshares. Gonna take your Hogak again. Make a monk token. 3/3 Monastery Mentor. 1/1 monk. 2/1 Snapcaster Mage. Time to make some blocks now if you're Tomajko. Last card in hand is Supreme Verdict once again. Gravecrawler, and Stitcher Supplier. Okay. Supplier trigger. Hit 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Well, the way that this is going to work is Tomajko might die this turn. If not, he dies the next turn.
This deck is a lot. Alter Dementia is going to come down post-combat.
Oh, Supreme Verdict, huh?
It's got a bridge.
It's good against creatures, and that's what my deck is.
It's got a bridge from below the graveyard.
Oh, my God.
A couple more bridge from belows. One more bridge from below and a Vengevine down there. Sacrifice there. It's going to mill himself 4 cards, it looks like. 1.
He's got a second bridge now, so if you can find a Hogak, and it shouldn't be that tricky to do, I think Tomajko just gets decked out this turn.
Yep, Hogak's the only missing piece to the puzzle right now. 2 have been swordged away. So we'll see how much further Donegan wants to go. Remember, he has not played a land yet for the turn, but I don't think he has one in his hand.
Yeah, because if he could get the Blood Gas back, we would have seen that by now.
I think so.
I mean, there's no real rush to do anything either. You just present this battlefield, and it's lethal next turn.
Pretty much.
I don't know what the how strong the incentive is to go for it here. Donegan's going to do a quick check. Again, if he finds a Hogak early in any sort of mill iteration, it's just lethal this turn. He has 2 bridges, so milling himself is profitable from a resource perspective, and then he can flip it and just mill Tomajko out.
20 cards in the deck. If he had a Hogak in his hand, he could Cabal Therapy himself and name Hogak, but I don't think he has one there.
If Donegan's thinking about this, I got to assume that he doesn't have it rolled up, and it's just a risk-reward assessment of trying to go for this turn versus, you know.
Okay, well, he's going to clear out the Supreme Verdict now.
Just waiting and being safe one more turn, because next turn he just plays the Grave Crawlers, gets the Vengevines back.
And the game's over.
Yeah. He doesn't need to do anything too risky.
And we're done. Dylan Donegan's going to win game number 1 here over Oliver Tomajko. Hogak up a game over 4-color Mentor. And it's a very, very, very bad matchup here for Oliver. But you see the first card. 4 copies of Rest in Peace. 2 Pyroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, a Palace Jailer, a Gideon Ally of Zendikar, a Blood Moon of Terminus, another copy of Supreme Verdict, a Wear Tear, and a Veil of Summer. What do we like?
Well, the 4 Rest in Peace and the 2 Surgical Extractions, that much is obvious. That gives Tomajko a real shot here. If he can shut down the graveyard early on in the game and Donegan can't get him off the battlefield, it's hard for Donegan's deck to do a whole lot. I like the Terminus in this matchup too, specifically getting those creatures that are good in the graveyard on the bottom of the deck. We saw that Supreme Verdict was pretty ineffectual there for Tomajko. Donegan could have just reassembled his battlefield without much effort, but Terminus could be a good answer in some spots.
4 Force of Vigor, 4 Land on the Void, 3 Abrupt Decay, 2 Thoughtseize, an Assassin's Trophy, and a Cabal Therapy here for Dylan Donegan. Anything stand out? I mean, you can bring in some discard. Abrupt Decays too.
Well, he can go pretty deep here. It depends on how much respect he wants to give to Rest in Peace. Because you could bring in Force of Vigor, Abrupt Decay, Thoughtseize, Assassin's Trophy, and Cabal Therapy in any blend to try to fight over those cards. Surgical Extraction, there isn't a whole lot for Donegan to do about that, but Surgical Extraction is just not nearly as threatening as Rest in Peace. I'm sure he's going to want some amount of stuff to get it off the battlefield. I think Abrupt Decay is a very easy one because it's uncounterable. It's also an answer to cards like Monastery Mentor. Does he want to go so deep as to bring in Force of Vigor? That's the question.
Well, those are the options there for both players. Game number 1 is all done. Not surprising to see Donegan win that one. Things are very bad for Oliver in game 1, but things could turn around in games 2 and 3, given the graveyard hate that he does have available. For now, we will talk about the Star City Games holiday sale. Cheer, cheer. Lightning Bolt, Surgical Extraction, Arclight Phoenix, Time Warp, Phyrexian Metamorph, Fiery Islet. All on the cheap. Maybe.
Promo code SCG15 for 15% off all online orders. What does that asterisk mean? not all online orders. Some restrictions may apply. Make sure to check it out at checkout. But for the vast majority of what's available on the website, use promo code SCG15 for 15% off during the holidays. StarCgames.com.
There it is. Restrictions may apply
StarCgames.com.
because of the person to my left. You're right.
Yes, I'm the one responsible for most restrictions that apply. It's because there are people out there like me hunting you down, squeezing out extra promo tokens out of the online orders.
You make everything worse until you make it better.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? You ready for your boy Eli today? I hope you are.
I can't wait.
I hope you are.
Maybe the last time.
Patrick's favorite football player, Eli Manning.
Eli Manning, number 10, Ole Miss, 2-time Super Bowl champion.
Mm-hmm.
Career record approaching 50%. Trending towards 50% wins.
It's good. That's big.
Is his jersey 2 sizes too big?
Always.
Does he look like he's never lifted a weight in his life?
Yes.
Was he ever one of the 12 best quarterbacks in the NFL?
No.
But I love him.
There he
And he's going to be out there today. Can't even call him a gunslinger because his arm is so noodly.
Yeah.
But
a ball thrower. That's what we'll call him. Just a good old ball thrower.
yeah, just out there throwing out the trash.
He's going to have a tough go of it, just like Oliver is here in a moment. But you know what? Oliver looks focused here. He looks focused, ready to rock and roll. He knows this matchup is tough, but other ones might be okay.
Well, also he actually has some real cards in the sideboard of games.
Most people don't.
For Rest in Peace and 2 Surgical Extraction is you got to feel like you got a puncher's chance at least. Game 1, he knows it's pretty hopeless. His draw wasn't even that bad for what his deck can produce, and it wasn't even close to competitive. But he does have some interaction for the graveyard post board, and I don't think Tomajko is shocked to have lost game number 1.
No, I think he knows that game is pretty bad. Even though he decided to take the play and let Donegan pick the matchup, he knew that Donegan was going to pick Legacy. Oliver was hoping maybe he could steal game 1 on the play. He'll be on the play here for game number 2 as Donegan's looking through his notes on how to sideboard here. Dylan has had a really, really nice year here on the SCG Tour. He's had a nice career on the SCG Tour as well. The 22-year-old from Cary, North Carolina, played in 21 Opens in 2019 and top 8 at 8 of them. All-time, he's got 19 top 8s, along with 2 wins, an Invitational top 8 and an Invitational win back in Seattle, Washington in 2014 that qualified him for the first Players' Championship. He's our youngest Invitational champion ever, and he could be our next Players' Champion, as things are off to a nice start here for him.
And a baller. He said he wanted. I think I've been in Dylan's scope for a while when it comes to basketball.
Okay.
Because we've talked about it. I used to play a fair bit. Not so much anymore, but I could tell when it was brought up yesterday as there's a core, people got a ball. Then, we're here way too late. It's not really possible. But Donegan, I think he makes me want to look. He wants me to look bad.
A little one-on-one?
One-on-one's not a great game.
No?
No, it breaks down pretty fast.
I've seen a lot of movies that have that, where it looks fine. He got game.
Yeah, it's just, usually there's some exploit. I don't think basketball is a very interesting game until you have, multiple people moving at the same time and people are running plays and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
One-on-one is just one person's too big or one person's too fast. That's how it goes.
How would it go for you two? You're the big one.
Well, he's taller than I am.
Is he really?
Yeah, Dylan's got to be 6'2" at least. He's tall.
You're not 6'2"?
No, I'm 6 on the nose.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Tiny.
Okay.
Tiny for a 2-guard.
Okay, got it. I figure you're stronger, but he's more wily.
Yeah. Well, it's I'm guessing it would be a classic speed strength battle.
Strength wins.
Not at a certain point.
Seen it in professional wrestling. Strength always wins. Until it doesn't.
Right.
Tricky Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
He always finds a way against the big guy.
Right.
You'd think they just throw him into the stands, but just can't catch him.
Yeah. Well, actually, the ways that it really breaks down is in real life, if you were big and you punched him really hard once, he'd be knocked out.
That's the trick, yeah.
Right, that's the trick. In real life, that's the trick. Wrestling's, there's some different conceits.
Well, that's real life, too. He's just a big guy, can't catch it.
Right. Excuse me.
Thank you.
My bad.
It's certainly not my bad. After this lengthy affair between Tomajko and Donegan, where we punch one ticket to the finals, it'll be Zan Saeed, our SCG Tour Player of the Year, against Edgar Magayesh. 2 members of Team Lotus Box on the other side of the bracket, 1 member of Team Lotus Box here. Oliver Tomajko looking to play spoiler.
I'll tell you the vibe that I got. We were talking about Dylan and the basketball thing. A couple of years ago, I was at a Grand Prix, and I was like, looking to play. Maybe some people are interested.
It's like a half decade ago, probably.
Maybe even longer than that.
Okay.
And Zach Hill's like, oh, if you're looking to play one-on-one, I'm like, I got a guy who would love to play. It's like, okay, and then it ended up not going. And Zach was like talking about playing for money, which is just weird. Like, you know what I mean? And then it turns out that Zach's guy was like, yeah, he was just on the University of Memphis basketball team. I'm like, yeah, it would have been a totally fair matchup. Play for money. Anyhow, Donegan gave off that sort of vibe of sounding suspiciously confident.
This is like a pool movie?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I got a guy.
Oh, no, the 8-ball went in the hole again.
Right.
You wanted to play for double or nothing?
And it's just Derrick Rose or whatever.
Yeah, I know someone. Have you?
Yeah, I got a guy.
Have you heard of Tyreek Evans?
Yeah, I got a guy.
He's not busy.
Yeah.
Come on, Zach.
Come on, Zach.
Looks like Dylan's going to take it. I got a guy's always a nice thing to say. Just prepare to get hustled.
Mm-hmm.
See if Oliver wants to keep his hand or not. He's actually giving this one a pretty long look. Just makes you wonder if he's got the graveyard hate or not in his hand. Again, 4 copies of Rest in Peace in the deck. Donegan does have answers in Assassin's Trophy and some other ways to get it off of the battlefield. And then his deck can do what it did in that first game. And truth be told, win pretty easily. But Oliver's going to try to prevent that. So we will have game number 2 with you here.
Well, I think Tomajko has to mulligan pretty aggressively because, as we saw in game 1, his normal defensive measures they don't do anything here. Mm-hmm. He drew multiple copies of Swords to Plowshares and had a Supreme Verdict, even Monastery Mentor to produce some blockers, and it just wasn't even close to good enough.
Yep.
So, Rest in Peace, Surgical Extraction, you got to find that.
All right, Dylan. Is it better or worse? Remember, London Mulligan rule in effect here. Tomajko kept his 7. Dylan's going to keep his. You saw the head nod there. So there you go. Let's start it up. It's Misty Rainforest. Tomajko will pass the turn back. Donegan going to play a Stitcher Supplier. There will be a trigger. 3 cards headed to the graveyard. 1's a Misty, 2's a Verdant, 3's a... Okay.
Cabal
Therapy?
Cabal Therapy for Rest in Peace could be in play here. If Tomajko kept 7, reasonable to guess that it's there. And if Tomajko has Rest in Peace, you lose the Cabal Therapy next turn anyway if he has a second land. It'll be interesting to see what Donegan wants to do here, because there's an incentive to go for it right now. Do you believe Tomajko could have kept a 7-card hand that doesn't include Rest in Peace?
It looks like he's going to wait on it. Just drew a copy of, I think that was a Terminus. Now, Tomajko does have a copy of Spell Pierce in the hand, so he could have Spell Pierced that Cabal Therapy had it been played. Dylan's deck isn't flush with a ton of spells, but Spell Pierce can counter something. It's not like Dylan's a deck that has a lot of mana.
I'm interested to know if Tomajko... I mean, he drew his card awfully fast, and it looked like there was a bit of hesitation when the Terminus in his hand. I don't know if he would have miracled the Terminus here, or if he just was moving a little bit too fast, or wants to bluff that he didn't draw Terminus, or whatever. But there was a weird little bit of body language there from Tomajko. I don't know if he just drew too fast for his turn or not.
Well, I'd be shocked if he wanted to Terminus just away a Stitcher Supplier. Stitcher Supplier is very good, but given how difficult the matchup is, I think he's got to get it all.
Probably. It was just a weird fast draw and then moment of hesitation there.
There's Hedron Crab.
And with Brainstorm, this deck can reset a Terminus. It's not like once it's drawn, it's stuck there forever.
Mm-hmm. Misty Rainforest. Trigger. A couple of lands headed to the graveyard. Force of Vigor, Bridge from Below, Altar of Dementia. Those are placed into the graveyard.
Yeah, interesting to see the Force of Vigor come in. That's a lot of respect for Rest in Peace, because we know that he already has Abrupt Decay to handle it. So he's going very deep if he's bringing in Force of Vigor alongside Abrupt Decay.
You got to imagine the members of Team Lotus Box crafted some sort of sideboard plan to give him an advantage here. This will be a Citrus Supplier being sacrificed to the flashback of Cabal Therapy. There will be a Citrus Supplier trigger on the stack along with a Bridge from Below trigger as well. So 2, 3 cards into the graveyard, Citrus Supplier and a couple of lands. Zombie should be on the way. And you see there is the zombie. And Surgical Extraction is actually going to take care of the Bridge from Below. So, no zombie. So all the bridges are going to be exiled here from Tomajko.
Good step one for Tomajko.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to see how Donegan sideboard here. Common in matchups like this to hedge off a little bit of the graveyard stuff, to go down from 4 copies of certain enablers to 3 or 2 in the face of Surgical Extraction. So it looks like Donegan only with 3 bridges.
Looks like he shaved a little bit there.
And that's pretty common to try to manage cards like Surgical Extraction post-board. And you got to find room for a lot of different cards, too. If he's bringing out an Abrupt Decay and Force of Vigor, you got to make room somewhere. But you need to keep the deck intact. You also want to limit your exposure to Surgical Extraction as much as possible. And that confluence of incentives usually just means cut a bridge or 2. Cut a Vengevine or 2. Whatever.
Yeah, sideboarding with a deck like this is pretty tough, too, because do you want to sideboard out a card like Altered Dementia, which allows you to kind of combo kill your opponent, or do you want to leave it in?
Feels like another, like, hedging makes some sense there, too, you know? You may not want to abandon it altogether, but if you think that your graveyard is going to be under duress, you're not confident you're going to have access to it all the time, Alter certainly gets worse. But Alter is also good as a response to Terminus, too, so there's just a lot of variables. I think sideboarding is very tricky from Donegan's spot.
Well, there you go. Deck is shuffled, ready to rock and roll. That's Spell Pierce on the Therapy. And now, are we going to make a move here with the fetch land? We might be. Donegan taking a look at the graveyard here. Remember, Hogak is a little bit different from Dredge insofar as, there's no Grave Trolls or Stinkweed Imps involved in this deck. Deck takes a draw step every single turn, looks to kind of play a normalized game of Magic, can cast its spells, cares about having actual lands, all that good stuff. So we head back over to Tomajko. Tomajko has a Snapcaster Mage in hand now.
Yeah, something to pair with Surgical Extraction.
Savannah, I believe. And we head back over to Donegan. Verdant Catacombs trigger. Assassin's Trophy, Bloodghast, Vengevine. Okay, those are real cards. Looks like he wants to sack the Misty first. Trigger on the stack. Donegan's going to lose a life.
And with that Snapcaster Mage, I think Tomajko's pretty happy to let Donegan push a little bit, get some more stuff in the graveyard, maybe get a better selection of things to take with Surgical Extraction, make Donegan commit to certain plays.
Bloodghast is going to come back, trigger the Crab, couple of Vengevines. Those look like they're probably going to get Surgical'd here if they even threaten to come back.
It's a little bit trickier for Donegan just to be pedal to the metal with Vengevine specifically post-board. Not only does Tomajko have interaction for it, but Donegan has to cut some of the pedal to the metal elements out of respect for Rest in Peace and Surgical Extraction.
And there's the Dryad Arbor. Okay. Looks like Donegan dropped a card. That problem is solved. Head Judge and Organized Play lead Jared Silva We'll be spectating all of these matches to make sure they are played appropriately in many different ways. Is there and goes 3 more cards: Force of Vigor, Careful Study, and a fetch land. So, does Donegan have a follow-up here? Does he have, for example, a copy of Hogak in hand to hard cast? And you saw him search for Dryad Arbor. That seemed like a purposeful act. Ah, he's just going to pass a turn back. Okay. This might be Snap Surgical right now. Just kind of get this out of the way.
Yeah, I think Tomajko wants to commit his mana next turn to Oko, in which case he wants to spend his mana this turn, and the Vengevine's definitely an attractive target.
Got one out of Donegan's hand, too, so that's all 4. Now you see Donegan's hand. He's got 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, and it looks like another copy of Bloodghast. So if the plan is to go towards Oko, it's not going to live for very long. But Oliver has done a nice job of getting out of these first couple of turns alive. And in the sideboard games where Donegan becomes a lot more reactive as opposed to just doing his thing, okay, makes some sense. Now, it does make you wonder if Donegan is supposed to sideboard in this way when he's on the play, or is he supposed to try to keep as many elements as possible to just be able to have a busted draw right away?
I mean, Surgical makes it harder. I mean, the London Mulligan, Tomajko can be very aggressive in searching for one of those premier cards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It probably changes a little bit.
Looks like 29 cards left in Donegan's library.
Now, Tomajko knows about the Abrupt Decay, so he can play the Oko. It's fine, whatever, but can't run away with the game with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if he wants to sit back and hold it until Donegan presents something like Hogak that's an attractive thing to do it, or just kind of get it out of the way and free up his mana for future plays. Because as well as this has gone for Tomajko so far, he's still pretty exposed to Hogak.
He absolutely is.
And his hand doesn't really cut it off in any meaningful way, other than the Oko, which won't survive longer than a turn.
But to Oko's credit, it doesn't need more than a turn, because if it does come down and turn Hogak into a 3/3, that's a very manageable threat. Wouldn't be too scared of that if I'm Tomajko at that point. He's going to sacrifice the Misty Rainforest, go get himself a Tundra. And here comes the powerful Planeswalker and Oko, Thief of Crowns. The Crab has been turned into a 3/3 elk. Okay. Well, there's Decay to take care of that.
Now, Tomajko's leftovers are quite bad.
I believe it's Land Terminus.
Land number 5 in Terminus.
Yeah.
Terminus. So for all that he's done so far, a 3/3 elk is the best thing on the battlefield. The Snapcaster Mage doesn't line up well against Bloodghast.
Well, Snapcaster Mage is going to block a Bloodghast. 3 damage is going to come through via the Hedron Crab. What's our big follow-up? The big follow-up is a Gravecrawler. Next, Gravecrawler. Pass the turn back. Okay. I mean, beatdowns. Source of Plowshare is the draw.
You know, and Tomajko's going to have to take 2 points of damage, at least, to be able to get the mana to cast Terminus, even if he draws land number 6.
Man, you know Dryad Arbor is going to give some beatdowns. Let's go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points of damage.
I mean, I suspect you want to take this hit if the whole plan is to draw a Terminus, or draw a land number 6 for Terminus. Because Source of Plowshares, you take 5 and go to 7, and then you're locked out the next turn because the hit down to 2 locks out your Misty Rainforests.
Mm-hmm. He's going to sack all these fetch lands and go down to 1. Cast Terminus, and if Donegan has a land, the game ends.
Yep, he can just get the Bloodghast back, and it will have haste.
All he ever needs now is just a land to get it done.
Got to make sure that Tomajko has 3 fetchable lands also.
That's a really good point. Okay.
So 2 Misties and a Flooded Strand. The Flooded Strand can get the planes. Okay, he's good.
There you go. He actually he took the time, did Dylan, to Abrupt Decay a Gravecrawler.
Sure.
Okay. Well, Land for the win. Actually, kind of important. He has it right now too.
Yo, Tomajko can.
Tomajko has swords in hand.
Yep.
So, yeah. Stitcher Supplier. That's a zombie.
Yeah, that'll play here.
That'll play just fine because now you get to catch Gravecrawler and Hogak.
It's not as good as drawing a land, but it's not bad.
It's not bad. Not a bad turn.
It's not bad. Not a bad consolation prize.
So that was the Terminus, and now here's the re-up, and that's going to do it. So Dylan Donegan's going to win match number 1 here over Oliver Tomajko. Hogak takes care of 4-color Mentor. I think this is how they thought it was going to go for both players. Very advantageous spot there for Donegan, even though Tomajko had Surgicals and Rest in Peace, all that good stuff. Donegan is up 1-0 in the match. We will see where things are going to go next because one of these players is going to pick what format they want to play or pick to play first. The decision's on Oliver. He's going to talk with Jared Silva about that. We're going to take a short break here from the Star City Game Center in Roanoke. When we come back, we'll let you know who's playing first and what format we're playing. See you back here in just a few. We're back. StarCityGames.com Players Championship. Oliver Tomajko, Dylan Donegan. That's the match in front of you. Our first semifinal match. Bant Urza versus Devoted Devastation is where we're about to go because Dylan has chosen Modern and Oliver has chosen to go first. So there you go. You see, Dylan won the Hogak match in Legacy over Oliver playing his 4-color Mentor deck. So now we take a look at Oliver's Bant Urza deck list here, Patrick, where he's got Emery as a 3 of, Urza as a 4 of, couple copies of Spellquiller, a whole bunch of copies of Oko, Mox Opal, Arkham's Astrolabe, Mishra's Bauble, Engineer Explosives, a couple copies of Cryptic Command and Metallic Rebuke. You see the lands to cast all the spells, the Goose, the Witching Well. Banter Urza through and through, but you think this matchup might be pretty difficult, yeah?
I think so. It's interesting, strategy-wise, Donegan choosing to play this format because, what's his decision here? Tomajko says, I want to take the play. So for what happens from Donegan's perspective is, the decision to me is, if I lose this match, what format do I want to be on the play for if we go to a third set? Because if you lose the second round, you're on the play, and the third format is whatever it is. So Donegan believes it's more important to have the play available for him in Standard than for this matchup right here. And that is interesting because Tomajko is playing a deck that largely defends itself with expensive cards. Engineer Explosives, Spell Queller, and Oko are some of his best cards in the matchup, and those are very play-draw dependent cards because they're so expensive. So very interesting for Donegan to choose this format, really signaling that he thinks it's actually Standard and not Modern where the die roll is the most important.
When you take a look at Donegan's deck list here, as you saw Tomajko's, Donegan is playing Devoted Devastation. He, along with many members of Team Lotus Box, brought this deck to the tournament, and it was a successful decision for them. I think most people expected them to bring some build of Urza. I think they expected that most people would expect them to do that, and they kind of juked the field here. You see the 4 copies of Devoted Druid along with 3 copies of Vizier of Remedies. That's your infinite mana combo. Some ways to accelerate to it with Noble Hierarch, Gilded Goose, and Birds of Paradise. Giver of Runes provides protection, and the rest of this stuff kind of makes either the combo go together with Once Upon a Time, Finale Devastation, and Aladamri's Call. Combo things once you have the infinite mana, Ranger Captain of Eos, Shalai Voice of Plenty, Walking Ballista, or Oko.
Right. So you generate infinite mana. You have Shalai as a way to win the game if you can't target the player for whatever reason. You have Walking Ballista if combat isn't an option. And you have Dustwatch Recruiter to flip over your whole deck once you have infinite mana. The rest of the deck is just mana, setup, and protection, a little bit of utility.
Also, that Deputy Attention is kind of a tutorable way to solve a problem which has been very beneficial for Zan and many others that have elected to play this deck. That is Devoted Devastation in the hands of Dylan Donegan. Again, we kind of expected Team Lotus Box to bring Urza, but they elected to go a different direction, and it has been a successful decision for the majority of them throughout the weekend.
And a nice thing about a lot of those one-ofs, they aren't that bad to naturally draw. You have a lot of mana creatures alongside Walking Ballista. That works. Shalai is not shabby alongside so many mana dorks, and with Giver of Runes can actually create a soft lock of sorts where Giver of Runes protects Shalai and then Shalai protects everything else. And the 1 copy of Deputy Attentions just plays well in normal games of Magic. We've seen all these cards come up over the course of the weekend in spots that had nothing to do with the combo. And be productive Magic cards, which is a really nice thing for a combo deck. Usually some of your engine cards you're trying to avoid drawing. Here, not so much.
Well, it's a pretty fast start there for Tomajko. Arkham's Astrolabe off a snow-covered island. A couple copies of Mishra's Bauble, and we head back over to Donegan. Donegan's going to start things off with a Temple Garden, it looks like, as they both kept their 7 cards. 18 Noble Hierarch, pass the turn back over to Tomajko. Tomajko's going to start by sacrificing the Bauble. Take a look at the top card of his deck. And does he want to sacrifice the next one?
Yeah, Tomajko looking at his deck first to help inform the decision of whether or not he wants to bobble Donegan right there or keep the bobble in play for Metalcraft interactions.
Looks like he found a copy of Mox Opal, as well as Gilded Goose, did Tomajko. So we'll see what his second turn is going to bring. He'll start with the Mox. Tomajko won an Open at a very early age. A couple of years ago, you and I were there covering that one. I think he won an Open in Providence, if memory serves, while we were there. Here is a Bauble activation. That card's going to stay on top. There's the Goose. It is now loose. Doing it with Abzan during Khans of Tarkir Standard. So to see him here doing well, it does not come as much of a surprise. He demonstrated very early on in his Magic career that he was quite proficient at the game, and he continues to get better and better every single day that goes by. Though he is down a match here, back up against the wall. He's got to win in Modern and Standard to move on to the finals. Donegan knew he had an advantage in Legacy, and he certainly did take advantage of that. So you see Oliver with a lot of cards in hand. But he's passed his turn back over to Donegan, who's got that Temple Garden, that Noble Hierarch, and Dylan trying to figure out the best way to move forward.
I'm guessing Tomajko would say that he's got the better of it in this matchup, being on the play, and doesn't mind his chances in Standard if he gets to the draw.
Yeah, he's got to get to Standard, though. That's going to be tough. This is part of the reason that Donegan brought this deck, too, by the way, is that they felt, did Team Lotus Box, that Devoted Devastation had an advantage against Urza because they had to imagine that Urza was going to be a popular deck. This is a Ranger Captain, and Metallic Rebuke is going to take care of that. Donegan had a feeling that was going to happen, so he placed it directly into the graveyard. We'll head back over to Tomajko now. Tomajko quickly untaps. Doesn't have a second land just yet. But he does have access to 3 mana, oddly enough, with the Mox Opal, Metalcraft being satisfied given the food token, and the Arkham's Astrolabe. And then that food token can generate mana via Gilded Goose. So Tomajko did draw a land there in Misty Rainforest. And he will search up a snow-covered island. So things are humming here for Oliver. Tap the Mox for a little bit of mana. Here comes Oko, which is no Joko. Gonna make a food. Pass that turn back, so the engine's starting to get online, and we know that Donegan's deck has some real trouble with a resolved Oko. Can never really get the combo online through that powerful Planeswalker.
Yeah, this deck requires Devoted Druid to be on the battlefield for a full turn cycle before it can go off and do anything. Has no way of generating the combo at instant speed or through the opponent's end step. And so you just got to play through an Oko. Now, we've seen them be able to do it a couple of times. You get enough presence on the battlefield, you can attack it down over time. This deck has the capability of winning with regular damage in the first place, but it's really problematic. The Devoted Devastation deck really isn't set up to play that kind of game as its primary avenue, and it's really about the combo, and Oko makes it so difficult to put it together.
So how does Donegan move forward now in the face of maybe Magic's most powerful Planeswalker of all time? Well, first he's going to sacrifice a fetch land, so he'll get a basic Plains off of Windswept Heath. And he's already tapping mana. It'd be a good time for that Deputy Detention if he has it, but he's going to go to his own Oko, and this is going to get rebuked as well. So get that weak stuff out of here. Goodness. Noble Hierarch pass the turn back. Tomajko's starting to run away with it here in this game. He's got the active Oko. You see sacrifice. Looks like he did. I mean, pretty easily can cast this. Looks like we have our head judge, well, one of our judges here, Riki Hayashi, checking to make sure the Metallic Rebuke was castable.
Yeah, because you have to pay for the Rebuke all at once. So the question now is, can you both tap it to improvise and sack it to a Goose?
And that's the question. So, looks like he has to tap the... Okay, so he had to tap the Astrolabe to help with the improvise, but again, we've got 2 great judges here in Riki Hayashi and Jared Silva making sure that everything is being played appropriately here between these players given what's on the line. That's a snow-covered island there for Tomajko. And now there's Urza. So the heavy hitters are on the battlefield. And look at the power level of this deck online right now. Arkham's Astrolabe is obviously an incredibly powerful card. Here's another one of those. So this will draw a card. Gilded Goose has shown its power since its printing. Urza, Oko, Mox Opal. No bad cards.
Yeah, this is a total runaway now. Tomajko was able to get on top of this game before Donegan had any threatening pieces, and then from here, Donegan's going to have to try to win the game through regular damage. Borderline impossible, because he's not going to be able to do anything with the combo.
He'll make a food with the Oko, which is another artifact for Urza. We head back over to Donegan. Donegan's going to tap some mana here. It might be Finale. It is going to be Finale Devastation. Perhaps the plan here is to go get that Deputy of Detention. And that'll resolve. And there is the Deputy. That'll take care of the Oko. And when you take care of that card, you take a look at Tomajko's battlefield, and yes, it's still good. No doubt about it. As you see, Gilded Goose is going to make another food. But ultimately, this means that Donegan can actually start getting the combo set up.
Yeah, I mean, Tomajko gets to grind through a ton of cards a turn with Urza right now and put Donegan under pressure with that Construct token. So it's not... And he has no combo pieces in play, so it's not the most positive position, but he does get to start trying to do something. And Tomajko misses enough on these draw steps and Urza's activation. Donegan might be able to put together the combo in a short of 2 turns.
And it can happen. Now, Tomajko's Construct is very large. He's got 3 food, 2 Astrolabes, so that's 5 artifacts. A Mox is 6. Construct itself is 7. And we'll see the spin to win here from Tomajko with the Urza. Top card is a Hallowed Fountain. Not that good here for Tomajko. He'll leave that over there for now. No panic for Donegan thus far. As much as Tomajko was doing and how good it looked and how powerful the battlefield is, ultimately, when you knock out the Oko, there's really no way for Tomajko to interact with Devoted Druid or Vizier of Remedies right now. So,
yeah, if you're Donegan, you feel like you do have a shot here. There's one more key piece, another Oko. Even something like Engineered Explosives might be too much to beat from the spot, but he's got a chance if his hand is really well aligned. I mean, he's got to go like now, but it's possible.
There's the Goose. Here's the beatdowns. You can afford to take this hit, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Tomajko's hand is just a land, so we're going to spin to win, it looks like. The Goose will sacrifice a food. Top card is a Goose, so...
Free Goose.
Yep, free Goose indeed. So Urza's starting to generate a bit of an advantage, but no answer to anything that Donegan can set up this turn. So does he have a Devoted Druid to place onto the battlefield? He taps his mana immediately. There is the Druid. Okay.
All right, he's got to fade quite a few cards from Tomajko here, but and his hand needs to be rolled up. He's down to 2 cards, so no guarantee, even if the Devoted Druid survives, that he can win the game next turn. But there's a chance.
Hey, he's giving himself an opportunity to win.
Absolutely a chance.
That's all you can really ask for right now if you are Dylan Donegan. So Oliver Tomajko looks like he's going to sacrifice a fetch land now. At least he's thinking about it. He'll sacrifice that Polluted Delta. Look at all the permanents on the battlefield here for Tomajko, and yet he needs his good pal Oko to save him or spell Queller. You see Mystic Sanctuary could be an option this turn. Sanctuary could get back Mystical Dispute. Excuse me, Metallic Rebuke.
The problem is that Donegan, if the key card is Vizier, that costs 2. Even if Donegan has to chump block with a mana creature, he still has 5 mana going into the next turn.
Yep.
So the Rebuke doesn't stop the 2 mana card, and if Donegan resolves Vizier, he then has infinite mana. Infinite mana is very good against Mana Leak, and so can't get that one back. If it was Cryptic, very different.
Cryptic is great. Oko is great. There's a lot of good ones here for Tomajko to find.
He's going to be on the hunt here.
That is a Gilded Goose there from Urza. That's not what the doctor ordered. Okay. But it is a food token, which means another Urza activation could be had here. That's all 4 geese. They're on the battlefield.
It's a 20% rebate on his Urza activation.
1, 3, 4. Did I miss one? I may have missed one. Donegan's going to call for a Vizier.
So that's piece number 2. Yeah, every mana matters here because it's possible that Tomajko's going to have to end up tapping that huge construct to get one more shot at it.
Not it. Okay. So, let's see. The geese can sacrifice food to generate mana. So I think he's got one more spin in him, right?
I'd be hard pressed to see how he gets 2.
Yep.
But yeah, one of the geese is summoning sick. That came off the ears of this turn. So 3, 4, 5 plus the 3 geese plus the 2 lands. Yep. That gets you there.
Okay. So Tomajko's going to play that fetch and sacrifice it. Snow-covered forest.
Got to thin out.
Got to thin her down. Okay. Oh, he drew Oko. Wow.
Okay, well.
Wow. He drew Oko for the turn. Unbelievable.
He got a lot of looks at it.
He certainly
got
did.
a lot of looks at it. And it didn't have to be Oko. But wow, is that the most frustrating one it could have been.
Brutal. I'm not sure if Donegan has a way out of this now.
That's excruciating, too, because when you watch Tomajko spin like that, it's just after the second spin you have in your head that last card's a blank.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not.
And now Donegan's got to figure out if there's a way for him to wiggle out of this position. He's used his Deputy of Detention to take care of an Oko already. But he only plays one mainnet copy of Deputy.
And he's not doing anything in combat this game.
No.
No chance.
There will be no attacking. It's got to be via the combo. There's a windswept heath. You see Donegan shaking his head. He knows that there's not a great way for him to get out of this situation. There is Hollowed Fountain entering the battlefield untapped. A lot of mana here. But for what? Finale. Okay, he wants to get back Ranger Captain from the graveyard, because Finale does go from the deck or from the graveyard. Okay. And so he's going to search for Giver of Runes. Well, he's going to have to get real creative to get it done here. There is Giver.
Yeah, I mean, Tomajko can either take or elk the Giver here, and the Ranger Captain doesn't amount to much.
I mean, it does force your hand insofar as you have to take care of the Giver right now. So it's a minor thing, but it is a thing. Tomajko's going to untap a whole boatload of stuff. So he'll draw. He has access to a ton of mana thanks to Urza. Going to come at no shortage there. So he'll start by using all the food to tap for blue to activate Urza. This is an Engineered Explosives.
One more little bit of insurance.
That's going to be for 0 out there. over time can find ways to get that back. Sacrificing it for 0 would blow up a lot of Oliver's stuff right now, but we know that Emery can get back engineered explosives, and you can do some pretty crazy things there. So here's 5 yet again. Another Urza activation. Sometimes you see players just shortcut and turn over the top card of their deck. I think our judges here have actually asked them to shuffle in between each one. So there's another EE.
Another 20% off a future Urza activation.
Mm-hmm. Be pretty surreal if he was able to win this game. Donegan, I speak of.
Looking like he had some hope there for a second. And he would have been able to get it done with the finale devastation he played last turn if everything got to stay in play. But Oko shut off the Devoted Druid, and now
another Urza. You cast this one, yeah, and Dylan knows he's beat now. Dylan says, you got it. That's 2 constructs that are huge. That'll just be attacking. You turn that Gift of Runes into an Elk, and you're outclassed in the battlefield. So a timely top deck there for Oliver Tomajko as he wins game number 1 here over Dylan Donegan. Bant Urza up a game over Devoted Devastation. And now we're going to turn our attention to the sideboards, and we're going to start with Dylan Donegan as he will be on the play here for game number 2. You see the 2 copies of Collector Oof, 3 Mirren Crusaders, 2 Disdainful Strokes, a Dismember, 4 Paths, and 3 Veil of Summers. Let's take some time and go over each one of these cards, see what we think lines up best here for Donegan.
Well, there are some creatures in the opposing deck, and that makes an argument for Path to Exile and Dismember. But I think that Dylan probably can't afford to be that specific with his interaction. And so maybe we'll see the Dismember. I'd be shocked to see Path to Exile. Disdainful Stroke, again, a couple of targets, but probably not what the matchup's about. Veil of Summer is getting closer. Again, it's not... I am suspicious ultimately. I probably wouldn't bring it in here against the non-black build of the deck. There's probably not enough targets, but it definitely has high upside in certain spots. Collector Oof is good against elements of the deck, and it is an answer to Engineer Explosives, which is one of Tomajko's better cards in the matchup, but it's so poor against Oko that I would not be surprised to see it stay at home. What I really like here, though, is Mirren Crusader.
Yeah.
Very challenging card for Tomajko to handle. If Tomajko is successful at keeping Donegan off of the combo and turns the game into something about damage, about creature combat, where Devoted Devastation is not 0%, but it's certainly not the game they want to be playing, Mirren Crusader plays very well there. It is something that can get the game over with very quickly, especially if Tomajko is turning combo elements into Elks.
Mirren Crusader is a card that Team Lotus Box brought to the table, and we saw for Dylan him actually take care of Colin Roundtree with an early Mirren Crusader and just beat beatdowns. That was all that it took. Now here you see for Oliver Tomajko with his Bant Urza sideboard. He's got copies of Ashiok Dream Render, a Teferi, 4 Damping Spheres, 4 Path to Exiles, 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Veil of Summer. There's some cards to like here.
Yeah, so I'd like the 4 copies of Path to Exile the most. It's cheap, good interaction, and it's an answer to Mirren Crusader. So no problems there. There's a couple things here that could line up the right way, but I'm suspicious of. The 2 copies of Ashiok, there is Finale of Devastation. There is Eldamri's Call. My concern here is that Donegan is not that bad at attacking down Planeswalkers, and Ashiok that just gets attacked down isn't worth a whole lot. So I would expect those not to come in, even though there are some search effects. Veil of Summer is not really for this matchup. I don't think there's a whole lot to effectively Pithing Needle. Most of the activated abilities that are relevant here involve generating mana, and so there isn't a high value needle target to break up the combo. Damping Spheres for other matchups as well.
Well, there you go. That's the options there for both players. Pretty good overview there, so thank you for that, partner. As we get ready here for game number 2, they're already shuffling up, rocking, and rolling. So for right now, Dylan Donegan is up a match in our best of 3 matches here in the semifinals. Devoted Devastation, Bant Urza underway. You saw Tomajko win that first game against Donegan. So Donegan will be on the play here. It's been a marathon affair over the first couple of days. And this one I don't think is going to be any shorter. But only 4 players left here to do battle, and not the 16 that we started with here at the Players' Championship. But it looks like these players are in good spirits as they play for a lot on the line here. Maybe Donegan getting the phone out, getting some music going. Who knows? You be careful, Dylan. We'll steal your password. I promise you we will.
You want to hack into Dylan's account? What do you think you're going to find?
Probably some cool stuff. I mean, he's young. What do the kids do nowadays?
You are really asking the wrong guy.
They're hip.
I mean, I guess it depends how old kids you're talking about. Like 5-year-olds, I kind of know what's going on.
You're into that area?
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of? They're still watching like Dora the Explorer and stuff. Is that a thing?
My daughter had a Dora the Explorer phase. Okay. Didn't last for all that long, but she enjoyed it for a little bit.
I don't even know what kids watch. Is Sesame Street still rolling?
Yeah, Sesame Street's so dope.
Nice.
Kids TV is a lot better now than it was when we were kids. Quality is much higher.
I refuse to believe that.
The quality is much higher. Daniel Tiger, bangers.
What?
So Daniel Tiger, it's like a Mr. Rogers, like that sort of world, but a cartoon.
Daniel Tiger.
Yeah, a cartoon family of tigers, bangers. They have tiger print curtains though, which is really horrifying to think about.
Yeah,
as a tiger. That I don't like, but the rest of the show is cool.
Okay.
Although I disagree.
Is there like a good guy or a bad guy? Or are there only?
Yeah, there's like this. There's like this little town. No, there's all sorts of humans and animals, and they live pretty peacefully with one another.
Okay, that's good.
There are lessons. Each show is kind of about a lesson. I don't agree with all of them, and then we talk about.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's one that's like, if something scares you, just go check it out. And it's like
no,
absolutely do not do that.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
Don't do that. And there's a couple others,
Okay, sure.
But by and large, and the have little songs and stuff. It's dope.
Okay.
It's dope. Daniel Tiger's dope.
I like that. Yeah, I don't know what the kids are watching nowadays. Sesame Street was kind of my jam. Power Rangers when I was growing up. That's a TV show right there.
I was a little. That's our kind of our age gap right there. I was a little aged out of Power Rangers when it was popular, but you're a couple of years younger than me, so you probably were right in the sweet spot.
Power Rangers is where I was rocking. There was also there were some pretty bad cartoons to kick off the morning before school, but the Mega Man cartoon, especially bad, one of my favorite television shows, given my love for Mega Man. But even I knew the cartoon was bad then.
Yeah.
I still loved it. But it was not good. And I don't even know I can only imagine with the Saturday morning cartoons. They still got those? Is that still a thing, Saturday morning cartoons?
It's so different now with like these subsubscription services like Netflix.
That's how they get you.
It's not like you just turn on channel 6 and there's cartoons that are playing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I had to explain to my daughter recently what an ad was, because I was showing her a YouTube video.
Okay.
Kermit the Frog performing Rainbow Connection, and an ad came on, and she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's an ad." She's like, "What?" I'm like, all right, so someone pays them money to run a video because your brain doesn't work right, and it'll make you more likely to buy something. It's really hard to explain to someone what an ad is unless they kind of just have it as background knowledge.
That's interesting. What is a commercial?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's a thing. It's a tool to get you to buy something. I used to love like the board game ads and stuff way back in the day. We'll get into that in just a little bit. For now, Oliver Tomajko, he kicks things off with a Mox Opal. Mishra's Bauble, Flooded Strand for Dylan Donegan. It's a Temple Guard, no mana accelerant, no one mana spell at all. And now Razorverge Thicket. Devoted Druid is going to get rebuked. And Donegan knows it. So away it goes. Remember, Tomajko is currently up a game, so if he wins this game, the match is over, and we head to the third and final match.
Yep, and Donegan will get the play for that one. And that was the concession he made here. And this matchup is definitely play-draw dependent, especially with Tomajko's best cards being a little bit on the expensive side. But Donegan felt Standard is actually where there's more on the line, play versus draw. And that will be Simic v. Simic.
Flash v. Ramp.
Mm-hmm.
Tomajko on the Flash side, Donegan on the Ramp side. Bobble triggered. Take a look. Get a little info. Do you want to fetch it away? The answer is yes. So, Misty Rainforest will be the land for the turn. Crack that. Fall down to 18. And we'll see exactly what land Tomajko would like to get. He'll go with a snow-covered island. going to head back over to Donegan now. Temple Garden untapped. Eternal Witness. Alright, get it back. Pass the turn back over to Tomajko. Tomajko's draw not terribly explosive. You see just a couple of lands and a Mox in the battlefield. We have seen explosive draws from him before, but not one right now. Okay.
Not necessarily the worst thing, though. It's good for him to be able to defend himself, I think, a little bit more than having this proactive flood of stuff on the battlefield.
Step one there for Donegan is get in there with an Eternal Witness, so 2 damage will come across. Looks like Tomajko's going to fall down to 16. Donegan takes the lead as far as life is concerned. The follow-up is a Devoted Druid. That'll be Spell Quellered. Donegan does not appear to have much of a follow-up, though he does have 3 cards in hand. So Queller is going to eat the Druid, and we're going to head back over to Tomajko, who, as you mentioned, does have a slower hand, but not the worst place to be because that means he has a hand that's probably much more interactive.
Mm-hmm.
And he's interacted a couple times here with a early Metallic Rebuke, and now a Spell Queller. So there you go. Snow-covered forest. And just going to pass the turn back. So Donegan's sacrifice a fetch land. Away goes the Windswept Heath. Onto the battlefield will be a breeding pool that enters the battlefield untapped. Okay.
Might be seeing Aladamir's Call here.
And we will see Aladamir's Call. And we will see it resolve. So Donegan's going to go searching for a creature. It'll be added to his hand. He's thinking Deputy Detention right now, but we'll see if that's what he actually wants to go get. A lot of options here, especially after sideboard when he brings Mirran Crusader into the deck. Crusader is a very, very good card in this matchup. Better against Sultai, of course, than Bant, given the color combination, but still totally fine here. Might also be thinking Ranger Captain of Eos, too. But the young man from Cary, North Carolina, giving this one quite a bit of thought. There it is, Ranger Captain of Eos.
Yeah, I think the Donegan's suspicious that that Deputy has any chance of surviving for very long.
Mm-hmm.
The Knight at least brings another body with it. You can go get Giver of Runes, which could facilitate racing down the line. But if Tomajko's not doing anything, I think you just can't assume that Deputy Detention is going to resolve and then survive.
Cryptic will take care of the Ranger Captain. Giver of Runes is going to slide in after that. So counter draw on the Cryptic, and now Tomajko will draw a card. He's found a Mistress Bauble, and he also has a copy of Oko, which is, as you know, no Joko.
And that is also a combo here that Tomajko can assemble with the Bauble and the Mystic Sanctuary is getting the Cryptic back on top and drawing it this turn if he wants to.
Tomajko is humming along. This is the style of game I think you prefer more from Tomajko.
Yeah, Donegan not really able to get off the ground very quickly here, and now he's in that secondary position we've seen a lot of, trying to get it done with regular damage, where he's not helpless in that sort of a game, but it will be very challenging.
Mystic Sanctuary is going to enter the battlefield untapped, given the number of islands that Tomajko has in the battlefield. So Cryptic Command is going to go back on top of the deck. Mystic Sanctuary, an incredibly, incredibly powerful land. Don't have to work too hard for that effect, and that effect is incredibly powerful. Tomajko now. Gonna go towards Gilded Goose. There's the Bauble. Here's the Oko. And there's just no shortage of power level in Tomajko's deck.
No, and the lock is getting cinched in again.
Mm-hmm. important to remember Devoted Devastation was brought here by Team Lotus Box to get an edge on the Urza decks, and right now it is not appearing to be the case. Here's some mana. There's Shalai, Voice of Plenty.
Well, that is not bad. I mean, Tomajko there took a little bit of a risk turning the Spell Queller into an Elk, and part of that is making sure that the card in question is exiled forever. But now he's got this sort of soft protective lock here. The Shalai prevents anything else from being targeted, and the Giver of Runes can protect the Shalai.
Yeah.
So if you want to try to get it done with regular damage, this is a good way to try to do it.
Well, there is Shalai, Voice of Plenty. You see the 4-mana Angel, 3/4 flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. Now, for GG, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, but right now, Giver of Runes can't be targeted by anything because the Shalai that's on the battlefield, and the only thing that can be targeted is Shalai. So, that's, nope.
Illegal maneuver.
You have to,
Yep.
have to wind that back there, bud. Illegal maneuver has certainly been announced. You got one target for that Oko on Dylan's side of the battlefield, and it's Shalai. And the tough thing here, too, is if you think about it, if you try and turn Shalai into an Elk, Dylan's going to protect it with Giver.
Mm-hmm.
You respond by bouncing it with Cryptic, which, okay, it's back in your hand, but then the same play pattern happens.
Right.
You just play the Shalai again the next turn, and you still have Giver protecting it. So Shalai is actually pretty nice here for Donegan, at least something for him to work towards.
Yeah, it's a weird sort of backdoor way for this deck to cobble together regular damage and set up this soft lock. Doesn't come up all the time, but we talked kind of at the top of this matchup of the one-ofs in Donegan's deck do have utility. They're not just combo pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And Shalai plus Giver of Runes is, we saw that be a critical part of Zan being able to beat Zach Allen to get his spot in the top 4 yesterday. And now, it's not like Tomajko can't get out of this, and Engineered Explosive solves a lot of problems too, potentially. But
Sure does.
This was looking like a game that was trivial for Tomajko to manage, and now it's, he's going to have to work for it a little bit harder.
Tomajko a little unsure of himself, too, as he was thinking about playing a Breeding Pool untapped, slowed down. Now he's going to play it tapped. Looks like he's going to make a food with the Gilded Goose. Pass the turn back. So let's go back over to Donegan now. Part of the reason he made that food in the main phase was to give him a third artifact there for his Mox Opal so that he can cast Cryptic Command. Mox Opal, Hallowed Fountain, 2 snow-covered islands will allow him to cast Cryptic. This is Noble Hierarch. That's going to resolve. Maybe Shalai's going to get busy in the red zone. Yes. Start to get to work on Oko. Bring it down to 2. Any follow-ups in Oko that Dylan is expecting to get Cryptic commanded? Which, okay.
Put it straight in the graveyard.
He sure did. he's ready to see it go away.
Well, the issue here is that the Cryptic is a critical piece of being able to break up the soft lock that Donegan has too. And it's not clear how much the Oko actually adds to Donegan's position or subtracts from Tomajko. So we might allow this to resolve and then use the Cryptic to try to break up the Shalai Giver lock.
Yeah, the tricky thing here, though, is that Oko's so powerful that you're almost incentivized to counter it. Realistically, though, I don't know how impactful it is on this battlefield.
Well, you can go counter Oko, bounce Shalai. That induces the Giver. And then your Oko can take care of the Giver. But it looks like Tomajko's just going to let it go.
So in comes Oko. Make a food, pass the turn back. Here comes that Cryptic. I like that choice of play there from Tomajko, which is tap your team, draw a card.
Well, he actually bounced the Mystic Sanctuary.
Oh, even better.
Yep.
Jeez. So tap your team, bounces Sanctuary. Okay. So you can replay and get Cryptic back again if you want to, and you start to work towards that. I don't want to call it an infinite lock, but
And Tomajko still has the bauble available too, so if he is concerned that he's got to get the Cryptic for Donegan's main phase, he can go ahead and get it whenever he wants to.
There's Emery. 4 cards. Path Exile among them. Path isn't a bad one. Oko's going to go up. Going to make something into an elk. Ooh. Ah, he's pivoting. Okay.
Yeah, I guess he can just go Cryptic, tap down Donegan's team a couple times and attack for lethal.
Yeah, he's pivoting very, very nicely here is Tomajko. Instead of worrying about getting Shalai and give her off the battlefield with Oko, he's just saying, I can just tap your team and kill you with Cryptic and just worry about things that way. That's very, very smart here from Tomajko, which, given how he's dominated this tournament, doesn't surprise you to see him find an optimal line of play. No longer about breaking up Donegan's battlefield. It's about something else entirely, which is getting this game over with. And you and I have been watching Magic coverage quite a bit, but also have played against Cryptic Command quite a bit too. There's a comfort level for Tomajko right now.
Definitely.
Having that be your last card in hand as well, you really can't do much, because all of these modes means you really just can't do anything. Gilded Goose is going to block Shalai there. That's it. We're all done. Oliver Tomajko is going to win this game and match here over Dylan Donegan, 2-0. Bant Urza going to take care of Devoted Devastation, and for Oliver Tomajko, he has evened it up. We're going to go to Standard, folks. Dylan Donegan's going to be on the play. Our matchup is Simic Ramp versus Simic Flash. Winner of that's going to head to the finals. We'll see you back here from the Star City Game Center in Roanoke, Virginia. A handful of minutes. We are back. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, getting ready to bring you our final match of our first match, because it's best 2 out of 3 matches, between Dylan Donegan and Oliver Tomajko. They're all tied up, getting ready to play Standard, in which Donegan will be on the play. It's been a good back-and-forth affair. We knew that Donegan was very, very heavily favored in the Legacy portion of things. Donegan playing Hogak, where Tomajko was playing a 4-color Monastery Mentor deck. Donegan took that one pretty easily, 2-0. Not much of a surprise there. Though in Modern, things were maybe a little bit surprising because Donegan did bring Devoted Devastation, a deck that he felt was favored against the Urza strategies in the room. Did not break that way, though. Tomajko won that one pretty straightforward and easy, 2-0.
And if we know anything about Donegan's perspective now, based on the way that he's navigated this, Tomajko just choosing to play first time around and second time around, he believes this matchup is the closest.
Yep.
He was saving this for last because he basically gets to pick the one format where he gets the play.
Yep.
And this is the one he selected. He decided to take Legacy first because he felt he was an overwhelming favorite there. He could afford to take the draw. I don't know if he thought the matchup was bad in Modern or if he just thought the Standard matchup was closer, but again, chose Modern. On the draw, Tomajko won pretty comfortably, and being on the draw mattered. Yeah. I mean, Donegan really never got close in those games, but it could have been very different if he had been on the play in either one of them. Instead, now we're going to the final matchup here. Donegan will have the benefit of the play, which is a big deal in the Flash versus Ramp matchup. And we'll see how close it is. Donegan clearly thinks it's the closest of the 3.
Top 4 bracket here very quickly so we can take a look. You see that Tomajko and Donegan are still battling it out. Winner's going to play the winner of Edgar Magayesh against Zan Said. Zan, Edgar, that's going to be brought to you guys here in just a bit by Matthias and Emma. We're going to close out Oliver and Dylan here momentarily. So there you see our players that have made the top 4 here of the Players' Championship, a 3-day marathon affair between our 16 competitors, but only one person's walking out of here with $20,000 and the StarCityGames.com Players Championship title belt. Decks here very quickly. We can start here with Dylan, who is playing Simic Ramp. There you do see the Arboreal Grazers, the Cavalier of Thorns, the Hydroid Crisis, the 2 copies of Finale Devastation, which can find Agent of Treachery or Endrace Forerunners. If the game gets to that point, this deck list looks basically the exact same as to what Andrea Mengucci was doing at Mythic Championship 7 last weekend, up to and including those 2 copies of Quasi-Duplicate, 2 Castle Vantress, 2 Castle Garenbrig. The idea here is pretty simple and straightforward, Patrick. Ramp it up, play some big spells.
Generate a bunch of extra mana, and then knock your opponent out with very powerful cards that cost a lot of mana.
Yeah, simple, straightforward stuff. Been something that wins a lot over the course of Magic's history here. For Dylan Donegan, for Oliver Tomajko at Simic Flash. Now, we saw this deck dominate in the hands of Brad Nelson, Javier Dominguez, and Seth Manfield at Mythic Championship 7 in Long Beach last weekend. Though, Tomajko has elected to make a couple of changes. Got some ops in the deck, a couple additional copies of Brazen Borrower as well, but the key components are the ramp spells at 2 mana in Growth Spiral and Paradise Druid. That was the big innovation from the Hall of Famer Seth Manfield. Then you see 4 Frilled Mystic, 4 Nightpack Ambusher, because those cards are better ahead of schedule. And I don't know if you knew this, but Nissa, Who Shakes the World's a hell of a Magic card.
Yeah, it's really good when you answer your opponent's main phase and then untap and play it. It's really good with Breeding Pool alongside counter spells.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good just on rate. It's really strong.
Both players have 4.
Yeah. So a lot of this matchup is going to be one person leaning on the other. From Donegan's side, when things are going well, it's going to involve an explosion of resources early on in the game that's basically going to commit Tomajko to just sitting back on his heels hoping to counter something. And Donegan can either play multiple spells in one turn. Maybe sometimes Tomajko's only sitting on soft counters and Donegan can just generate so much mana he goes over the top of it.
Yep.
Maybe his payoff card is something like Hydroid Crisis, where even if it gets countered, you don't really care.
Yep.
The other side of it, when Tomajko's winning the game, what it's going to look like is Donegan is at parity on terms of mana, and Tomajko can play 2 spells a turn, where Donegan can maybe only play 1.
Sure.
And that Donegan can Tomajko can play catch up or play a tempo game in a way that Donegan can't. For example, counter your spell and use the mana left over to play a flash threat. Bounce your thing with Brazen Borrower and play the Brazen Borrower. Now I'm attacking you, and I still have all my mana up and all my cards in hand when you go back to your turn. So the initial generation of resources, can Donegan generate an advantage in mana, an advantage on the battlefield, and win with more powerful cards? Or can Tomajko make this a game about just my cards trade for your cards, and it's advantageous in terms of mana. The best cards that I have in my deck are still plenty good to win the game, and they cost 4 while yours cost 7. And can I capitalize in the delta in mana between our exchanges?
Well, we'll have to find out right now as our players are down in the feature match area. Final match of this gigantic match. Heading down that way. Oliver Tomajko on your left, Dylan Donegan on your right. Winner is headed to the final. Loser goes home, walks out of here with $3,500. Nothing to be upset about for our end-of-the-year tournament, but we know that both of these players are very competitive, and they want that StarCityGames.com Players' Championship title belt, along with the $20,000 that comes along with it. Dylan Donegan will be on the play here. He lost the last match, so the format here is standard, and we should see Donegan with Simic Ramp on, the play. Zan Edgar coming up next. Matthias Hunt, Emma Handy, they'll be bringing you that one. And then Patrick and I will be taking you home in our final match of the year here in 2019 between the winner of this match and the winner of our next match. Good standard format right now, too, actually. It took us a little while to get there. I'd say I've politely been calling it took some massaging.
Massaging is a word for it.
Yeah.
Ripping the guts out. I don't know. Whatever.
That's multiple words that you used.
Yeah.
I used just one. We had to kiss Oko and Once Upon a Time in Vale Summer goodbye. But we worked ourselves towards a solid standard format where Simic is still very good, obviously. And Simic was outrageously good before. Well, we've seen just how dominant Oko has been all weekend long, so it won't surprise you that it was a dominant card in Standard, too. So good to see that one. Maybe taking a little break.
Yeah, it's not really so much about the synergies with that card as it is the raw rate. So as the formats get less powerful, it stands to reason that Oko would be more prevalent, not less. And that's the way that it was.
Yes.
So it was banned in Standard, banned in Pioneer.
I guess, yeah, it is. It's still legal in Pioneer.
Oh, sorry.
Still legal in Pioneer for now.
It was Once Upon a Time, right?
Yes, Once Upon a Time got iced. Get out of here. Kindly leave.
Too good with the game engine.
Yeah. Simic on Simic action. One's flash, one's ramp. Good sportsmanship between the two. Now they'll take a look at their openers. Again, winner of the match. On to the finals. A tournament that has been won by Brad Nelson, Jim Davis, and Joe Lissette. Green means go. And away we do go. A basic forest. No Boreal Grazer. Good news there if you're rooting for Tomajko.
We are now in minute 90 of this match. Which is actually fairly short as far as these things go.
All things
we've
considered,
had some marathons.
It could be a lot worse. Breeding Pool untapped there for Tomajko. Tomajko is playing Opt as well as Mystical Dispute, but you can't dispute that one, so here is an Opt. Tomajko will take a look at that top card. It becomes the bottom card now. It's a mystery card coming here for Oliver. Remember, Opt was not in the list that Brad, Seth, and Javier played in Long Beach last weekend, but it's here now for Tomajko. He made that change. Another Breeding Pool untapped. Down to 16 goes Tomajko. We'll head back over to Donegan, who's got a Mana Accelerant on the battlefield there in Leafkin Druid. Again, kind of his flashpoint really starts at 5 mana. Risen Reef is something that can cause Tomajko to actually start having to care about things, but Cavalier of Thorns, Nissa, Who Shakes the World, 5 mana spells.
Well, you got to fight over the mana acceleration, too, because so much of what Tomajko has soft counters, and if you allow Donegan to get ahead on mana, those cards aren't worth very much.
And it looks like Hydroid Graces is going to get in here, but Growth Spiral will be played in the interim. So Tomajko will get a Temple of Mystery onto the battlefield. Scry, top card. We'll see where it goes here in just a moment. Will it remain the top card? Oliver giving this one quite a bit of thought before making his decision, and it will remain on top. So, Tomajko will untap and draw. It looks like it was a copy of Brazen Borrower. Fabled Passage is land 4. 4 is the magic number there for Tomajko, as it gives him access to Nightpack Ambusher and Frilled Mystic.
Little bit of a win here for Donegan to at least have some mana and a little presence on the battlefield before Tomajko got to that 4 mana. As you mentioned, that's the flashpoint. That's where he gets to make his good flash plays. And if Donegan's at parity on the battlefield, he's in big trouble.
Donegan thinking about going towards Risen Reef. Going to change the way that he cast the Elemental. Trigger, take a look at that card. It's going to be added to his hand. Now maybe a Leafkin Druid? It will be. That's another Elemental. So, top card. Temple of Mystery. Put that land on the battlefield. Scry. Good time for a Nightpack Ambusher. If Oliver has one, he'll sacrifice the Fabled Passage.
Really good looking turn for Donegan, though. That's a ton of resources to work with. So much mana. We're at the point now where Donegan can trivialize any of the soft counter spells. And if he's got 2 big plays, he might be able to make them both in the same turn and play through 1 hard counter spell.
There is Nightpack Ambusher, so the 4/4 is on the battlefield. You mentioned a good turn there for Donegan. Risen Reef and a Leafkin Druid was the turn, and that's 4 creatures out there for Leafkin Druid, which means they tap for 2 green as opposed to 1 as we head back over Dylan Donegan's way. Nightpack Ambusher did bring a wolf along with it, so that wolf token that you see is a 2/2. It's actually a 3/3 because of the Ambusher's text. So, let's see where Donegan wants to go now. He's going to go towards Risen Reef. There will be a couple of triggers because there are multiple Risen Reefs on the battlefield. So that is 1. And let's do it again. Do it again. That card's going to be added to the grip. Leafkin Druid is going to tap for 2 green. It's another copy of Leafkin Druid. So he's going to find what he's looking for. That's how this works.
This is a huge accumulation of resources and of chump blockers, too.
You see when Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, pardon me, put it into your hand. One thing you can do that's kind of unique is that if it is a land card, you don't actually have to put it on the battlefield. You can actually add it to your hand and have it be your land drop for the turn, which would make it enter the battlefield untapped if you play it as your land for the turn. It's a minor thing, but it does come up sometimes with Risen Reef. And now Donegan's going to tap a whole bunch of mana. Here comes a Haymaker, perhaps in Cavalier of Thorns, which he expects to get countered, and it will. Frilled Mystic will take care of that. We're heading back over to Oliver Tomajko. So Donegan continues to accrue resources, but he hasn't found that big Haymaker just yet. First one did get countered there in Cavalier of Thorns.
And now so much mana, so many cards. If Donegan can find something like Hydro Crisis, you don't even care about a counterspell. And if he's drawing enough cards, it's possible that he can just play 2 big cards in a turn.
Crisis is going to trade with the Frilled Mystic, Nightpack Ambusher, and its Wolf Friend. Get some damage through. Donegan's down to 10. Tomajko does have another copy of Frilled Mystic in hand, so he does have a hard counter right now as we head back over to Donegan. It just makes you wonder, what is the texture of Dylan's hand? Does he have a big payoff? Something like a Nissa, something like a Hydroid Crisis. You mentioned, Patrick, that he has so much mana, and there's a copy of Blast Zone.
Blast Zone's a very good one here for Donegan. Got a lot of mana to work with to get that up to 4. And Tomajko's real only point in threatening this game right now is his Ambusher.
We got 5 mana being tapped here. This might be a Nissa who shakes the world. It is. That's going to get Frilled Mystic. So to the graveyard that goes. Now the window is wide open, folks. And Donegan's got access to a ton of mana. He's already played for his land for the turn in Blast Zone. So he's got 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana by my math. Can he take advantage? Be a great spot for something like a Cavalier of Thorns. But his Nissa got countered.
I mean, you would love. It's really, really important for Donegan to have a follow-up play here.
Yeah, because I think going to Blast Zone,
So
setting up for the next turn, yeah, that's a little slow, right?
A little slow here. I mean, I wouldn't mind a turn that involves a big play plus the ability to get Blast Zone up. That would be nice.
Donegan also wants to make sure he doesn't get killed next turn, because it's entirely possible that some Ether Gust could get involved and take care of the game. So Donegan's got a question for our head of organized play and head judge for the tournament, Jared Silva. So away we go. We will get back to this game in just a second here. Oliver Tomajko going to wait patiently. He tapped out. He's hoping it's not too bad.
Well, you're seeing the stylistic differences of these decks on display early on, with Donegan, and they're both doing their thing. I mean, this game's looking like it's going to come down to the wire here.
Yep.
With Donegan having just an explosion of resources, a lot of mana to work with, and Tomajko trying to shorten the length of the game and prevent Donegan from pushing through 2 relevant cards in a turn. The window's open here for Donegan. He's got a lot of mana, and Tomajko is completely tapped out. It's just an issue of if he has something in his hand to push this forward.
Donegan's back.
It's like something big.
Agent of Treachery is
Yeah, that counts.
pretty big, yeah. That'll shrink the wolves and take away their pack leader. So let's go back over to Tomajko, who, you got to remember, this Simic Flash deck, it does not play particularly well from behind. Here comes Frilled Mystic. As those wolves are going to hang back. They're just 2/2s right now, so they're not really going to get anything done. Frilled Mystic will get 3 points of damage in. Remember, Donegan knows that this Simic Flash deck doesn't have any reach.
And now the problem here from Tomajko's side is the burden is on him to advance the battlefield. He is behind now. Normally that involves tapping out on your own turn and giving a window for Donegan to again resolve something big. That's the issue with flash style decks historically. They do not play that well from behind.
Time to untap all those lands. After that opt. All it takes is a Hydroid Krasis to wrap this one up. Now it already might be in good shape here for Donegan, but a Hydroid Krasis will make it really easy now. That we can promise you, but I don't think he has it just yet. And there's a Brazen Bar. We're going to bounce the Nightpack Ambusher. Okay.
Not a bad response, but again, it's still keeping the battlefield at parity and giving windows for Donegan to use all of his mana.
The only thing that Donegan has to concern himself with is Mystical Dispute. That's it. Six mana. 7 now. Finale for 5. Must be Cavalier time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Maybe Donegan thinks he made a bit of an error there, unsure. Trigger nonetheless. Risen Reef triggers, along with the Cavalier trigger. So Temple of Mystery is number 1. So let's start there. Now Risen Reef trigger number 2. Okay. Castle Garenbrig. Dylan, curious if he's played a land yet for the turn, because he might have some preference in not playing the land from Risen Reef and actually having it be his land drop for the turn. So looks like he's going to hold it. And now Cavalier of Thorns triggers. And I think he's going to take a Castle Vantress if he can. Yes.
Just one more powerful thing to be doing with a bunch of leftover mana.
That's right. Three. Quasi-duplicate from the graveyard. Copy the Cavalier. Let's do it again. Ooh, the Benny Smith copy token in the house.
Very nice.
Hello. You love to see it. 4, 5. Forest. So Cavalier of Thorns working overtime. Rest of those cards go to the graveyard. Also Risen Reef triggers. Jeez, look at them go.
Oh, yeah. This is kind of the ideal sort of cadence to the game for Donegan. Start off with a bunch of mana. Then when Tomajko starts holding up the shields, play some replacement level stuff that accumulates more resources but isn't good enough to get countered, like Risen Reef and then a bunch of other elementals that make mana, and then start just Haymaker 2-spell a turn, spells that are worth multiple spells you don't care if they get countered.
Jeez. It's a turn.
This is a turn. It's what we call in the business a turn.
Yeah, he ramped right by him this game.
Yeah. He went fast, and then he sort of went underneath in a weird way in the middle, and then just nothing but bombs for multiple turns.
Yeah, I think it's just too much for Oliver to overcome. I really do. Yep, and he knows that he's going to concede the game. So Dylan Donegan's going to win game number 1 here over Oliver Tomajko. Simic Ramp, especially being on the play, very, very helpful. Does win game number 1 here over Simic Flash, and Tomajko's got to do some regrouping here to tie this one up, because if he loses the next game, his tournament is over.
And Donegan there paid off there for the decision to take the play in this matchup in particular. Getting off to the jump with that mana, then playing underneath of Tomajko a little bit in the middle there, accruing more resources, and then easily overpowering the counter spells. That's exactly the recipe that Donegan wants for this matchup, and he was able to execute it perfectly there in game number 1.
All right, folks, so let's go to those sideboards, and we'll start with Oliver Tomajko, since he'll be on the play here for game number 2. Another copy of Brazen Borrower, another copy of Hydrate Krasis, 2 Lovestruck Beasts, 2 Aether Gust, a Crushing Canopy, a Chemist's Insight, a Mystical Dispute or 2, along with the Negate, 2 Frogify, and 2 Sorcerer's Spyglass.
I think the more cards that let Oliver play an efficient exchange of mana here, more stuff to do with his mana left over at the end of turns. I'm interested in Brazen Borrower, Hydroid Krasis, the Aether Gust. The Chemist's Insight, I think, plays pretty well in this matchup post-board, because Tomajko, again, is just going to be sitting back with a lot of mana, and Donegan may not always cooperate. You want to be able to fill out that mana, and a draw 2 is a fine way to do it. The Mystical Disputes, I suspect there's not quite enough for Negate, but again, Tomajko might want to just be as mana positive on his exchanges as possible, and maybe you even consider something narrow like Negate.
Yeah, how does he want to sideboard here? You know, he got off to a pretty decent enough start that last game, but then he just got overpowered, and there's no coming back when Simic Ramp is able to do exactly what he just did in that last game. So there's the sideboard there for Flash. We go to the Ramp side now. Take a look at this sideboard. Well, graphics a lot more straightforward. 4 Lovestruck Beast, 4 Aether Gust, 4 Mystical Dispute, 3 Shifting Ceratops.
I'm interested in everything in the sideboard except for the Lovestruck Beast. I think Shifting Ceratops it's just awesome in this matchup. Oliver's got a lot of counter spells, a lot of blue creatures, and the Ceratops, I think, really swings the matchup here for Donegan. I don't know exactly how many counter spells he wants, but Aether Gusts and Mystical Disputes definitely play very well in the matchup. They're mana efficient. They allow Donegan to push through his spells to play a little bit more 2 spells in 1 turn in the way that Tomajko aspires to.
Well, there's the options there for both players. Ceratops and Mystical Dispute will probably be coming in some heavy numbers, and we will see about the other cards there for Dylan Donegan. Winning that first game was certainly important, because Donegan's got some very solid tools to bring to the table for this matchup. So there you go. These players are going to shuffle up, get ready here for game number 2. we do want to let you know what the Season 2 schedule for the SCG Tour is going to look like here in 2020, which means this decade's almost over, partner.
Mm-hmm. Winding down.
We're going to fire up a new one here, kick it off in Columbus.
First weekend of the year, we'll be in Columbus and Knoxville. The return of the SCG Tour to Knoxville. That'll be January 11th and 12th. That'll be modern. February, we got Richmond, Philadelphia, and Indianapolis. That'll take us to the regional championships, which will be modern on March 7th. And then Baltimore the weekend after, which will be Pioneer. We have venues for the rest of the season, but not formats just yet. They'll be coming a little bit later in the year as we get closer to those events. March 21 and 22, that'll be Syracuse, and then we run out Season 1 in Atlanta, Worcester, Cincinnati, Louisville, and Philadelphia. That takes us to the end of May. And then June 11th through 14th, that'll be SCG Con Summer, featuring the SCG Invitational. That'll be in Roanoke, Virginia.
So, one thing when I was at Grand Prix Columbus, right before Thanksgiving, for as long as I've been going to Columbus, I had heard rumor about a hot chicken place upstairs in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Exists.
Okay. How was it?
Quite good.
Mm-hmm.
They give away tea for free.
What do you mean, like sweet tea?
Or regular.
Oh, wow.
Just, it's part of the meal. You don't have to pay.
Okay.
Which, a great business model.
Mm-hmm.
So, you chicken, a couple of sides, beverages on the house.
Okay.
That'll keep getting my business. Wish more people did that.
We're doing that one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I always go back to Columbus.
I know.
Oh,
you love going to Ohio. Can't get a tour event in Jersey. Well, I got to go back to Ohio.
You better believe it. You better believe it there, bud. Where are we supposed to go in Jersey?
New Brunswick, Princeton, Edison, North Jersey. We could do it in Newark or Linden.
That all sounds horrible. It's New Jersey. It all sounds bad.
Dude, we go to Ohio so much.
Yeah, people turn out.
In Jersey, ever had an issue with attendance?
I'm not here to talk about that right now. People show out.
No, you know, in
also, we got a nicer convention center than you.
The Garden State Expo Center is a post-apocalyptic convention center.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna say that place is hot garbage.
It is the worst venue on the SCG.
No,
no.
The Philly Convention Center. No, the one we went to like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Still don't know where that is anymore. Was that in Valley Forge?
Valley Forge.
Whew.
That one, I don't even count that one.
It's just you erased it from.
Because it was a garage. It wasn't a garage.
Big garage.
And we shared it with the dog show.
Yeah, we did.
There were not enough bathrooms.
No, there wasn't enough anything.
No.
And it was cold. I'll never forget that show because I remember taking the cab from the airport to wherever their hotel was, and it was a long cab, and the driver got lost.
Yeah. It's doesn't feel great when the cab drive involves dirt roads.
Yeah, the cab driver, where are you going? Oh no.
But we don't do that one anymore. Now we have it at the casino.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Where no one's a winner. Temple of Mysteries, plural, is how this game will start. One for each player. Top card goes to the bottom there for Dylan Donegan. We're going over to Tomajko now. Picked up a copy of Field Mystic for the turn. And we'll see what land number 2 is going to be. It'll be a basic island before we head back over to Donegan. Does Donegan have a ramp spell this turn? Growth Spiral, Leafkin Druid, Paradise Druid, all options.
Well, it's an interesting post board because Donegan kind of meets Tomajko a little bit on his own terms.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot more counter spells, and so turn 2 he might be ramping a little bit less and just leaving up mana a little bit more.
Brazen Borrower, the Petty Theft half of that card is going to bounce the Leafkin Druid. So the Brazen Borrower was on an adventure on the top of your screen. As we go back over to Donegan. Dylan thinking a lot here in the third turn of the game. How does he want to move forward? It's important when you're in a spot like this. The first game was a little bit easier here for Donegan. This one, not so much. He wants to make sure he sequences his spells perfectly, because you sequence incorrectly, Simic Flash will take advantage, and then they'll kill you pretty quick.
Well, there's a lot of there's a rhythm to these games. If Donegan knows, well, if I do this, Tomajko can respond with this and then untap and do that. So what do these sequences look like? What do the permutations of Tomajko's responses and then following turn look like? What do I want to hold back most of all? What are the key cards in my hand I'm trying to resolve or use as protection against Tomajko's answers? And so the pace of play slows down a little bit. Game one, Donegan just kind of plays his cards. He doesn't have a lot of counterplay to him. Post-board, it's a lot different. He brings in, he can bring in effectively 7 or 8 counterspells. So.
Scary thing, too, is that if you're not careful, if you're Dylan Donegan, you could be facing down a Nissa who shakes the world next turn. Growth Spiral, play a land, untap, play a land, Nissa, boom, all of a sudden you're super far behind. So you got to be thinking about that as an opt is going to resolve. Nissa was the draw step there for Tomajko.
Yeah, that's another part of it, too. It's not just playing around, well, this is what they have now, and then if they make a land drop next turn, this is the range. The response could also be Growth Spiral into a card that costs 2+ mana.
Looks like Tomajko was thinking about playing Paradise Druid. Now, is Paradise Druid the best way to go this turn? You see Temple of Mystery and Breeding Pool, so Tomajko does have lands. And when you think about this deck, you think about the fact that it loves to have 4 mana available, and that's what Tomajko's going to do. He's going to play his Breeding Pool untapped. This is a Growth Spiral here for Dylan Donegan. That's going to resolve. Temple of Mystery is the land.
And Tomajko, the play gets a lot more complicated too, because Donegan has access in the sideboard to that, believe it's a dinosaur.
Oh, it's a dinosaur.
And that can mean that he's not safe just leaving up mana on his own turn with a counterspell.
Shifty Sea is very much a dinosaur. Castle Garenbrig can enter the battlefield untapped, give it the Breeding Pool that's out there. Leafkin Druid with 3 mana available. So now it's all about sequencing and pacing here for Donegan when he's on the draw. Tomajko would like to sneak in a Brazen Borrower, and he will get the opportunity to do that. So now Oliver's going to untap. He found another copy of Paradise Druid. In for 3 in the air. Donegan's going to fall down at 15. Some very Vendilion Click-esque feels here in Brazen Borrower. Here's a Temple of Mystery. Top card becomes the bottom. Tomajko will pass the turn back. We're going back Dylan's way now. Dylan will draw a card. Four mana. Shifty. You can gust it. But once it's out there, it's out there. Rumble on in, Ceratops. It's got haste now. Dylan's setting that up.
Yeah, and I think that Donegan wanted to do this with a mana left over so he could Mystic Dispute and Aether Gust.
Man, he's going to actually be disputing a Frilled Mystic. So if you're Tomajko, now would be a great time to resolve Anissa.
And this is what Donegan was going for here with the sideboarding plans. A card that plays well against counterspells, along with something that allows him to play 2 spells in 1 turn. He tones down the ramp element of his deck a little bit post-board and tries to engage with Tomajko a little bit on his own terms with a powerful, uncounterable threat as something to break the game open while both players are at parity.
Now remember, as good as Ceratops is, given its uncounterability and the fact that you can give it some keywords that matter with a single green mana, this card is more powerful, and it creates green blockers. So Breeding Pool is going to be untapped. Here's an attack for 6. So you can chump block the Ceratops with these lands that Nissa, who shakes the world, does create. So Ceratops, while good, not unbeatable for Simic Flash.
Yeah, both players kind of getting their window there to have a big turn. Donegan had a very good previous turn.
He sure did.
Can Nissa catch Tomajko all the way back up?
4 mana. Be a good time for another Shifty Sea.
Keep in mind also Tomajko is representing lethal the next turn with a Nissa activation and his 2 3-power attackers. That's 9. Donegan obviously has a lot of ways to manage that already in play, but worth noting that Donegan has to be mindful of Tomajko representing lethal next turn on the battlefield.
That's a very good point. Dylan, excuse me. Taking a long look at this battlefield before making his play. He wants another Ceratops. He wants to give both haste. Let's get after Nissa. Nissa down. Okay. Pass it back.
But Nissa here on the way back.
We need a land to do it.
Yeah, still possible though.
Yep.
This one's going to be close.
It really is. A lot for each player to think about here. All right, you're at 3. Ceratops has so many keywords. Reach might be the most important of the bunch right now because it can block the Brazen Borrower.
Yeah, Donegan has the option of kind of freezing up the Brazen Borrower because it can neither block as a rule nor attack through the Ceratops if it's untapped with a green mana.
Yeah.
And it's possible Donegan could have a rhythm of, attack you with one of these, use it to hold back the Brazen Borrower, now attack with both the following turn.
Yeah. You better watch out if he draws another copy, I'll tell you that much. It's starting to get a little tight. Be a tough loss for Donegan to take 2 if he drew 2 of his Ceratopses. I think he set him up pretty nice, but that window was open for Nissa, and Tomajko was able to take advantage. Now Donegan's not too sure the best way to move forward.
Both these players tied on mana too, missing land drops here for a while, and I bet both of them could really use one more mana.
Mm-hmm. Here's a Risen Reef. Well, oddly, this is actually going to help generate some mana here potentially because it would be 4th creature for Leafkin Druid. So don't forget about that.
And also, this is the same sort of, are you willing to put your shields down countering this?
Mm-hmm.
It looks innocuous, but it is a chump blocker, and it might generate more mana. I mean, it certainly generates more mana for the reason that you said, but it also could be a land drop for the following turn.
Nightpack Ambusher. No. Oh! All right. The Reef is in.
Now, Donegan is...
I think just dead. Yeah,
just tapped out, right?
Yep, take a look. Yep. Final 3. Final 3, all right. Oliver Tomajko is going to win game number 2 here over Dylan Donegan. And you see that look in Donegan's eye. He's trying to figure out, what did I do wrong?
I think a big card in the matchup, something that really swings the game here, is Brazen Borrower. I think that's one of the key cards because it takes a lot for Donegan to resolve something big, and often involves resolve, play multiple spells in a turn, try to make an exchange that might look bad but push something through. Tomajko's ability to undo that, to play a little bit from behind, is really important. It's also not that easy for Donegan to handle creatures with flying. He has Hydroic Races and a couple of their big plays, but those take a while. And we saw what happened that game, even with Tomajko missing land drops, and even with Donegan resolving some of his better sideboard cards, was Tomajko was able to contract the length of the game there a little bit with the Brazen Borrower on offense, and force Donegan to play into some soft counter spells in spots where the exchanges were extremely bad. And that's not possible if Tomajko doesn't have some sort of offense going.
Pretty great game there.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Pretty great game. Gotta say it. between Tomajko and Donegan. So now they are going to go back to the drawing board one last time. Isn't it fitting that we're going to go to another game number 3 of our third match between these two great players who have had such great years on the SCG Tour. Oliver Tomajko especially, he's kind of your consensus pick coming into the weekend to win the tournament. The 19-year-old from New York has just played beautifully all year long with 20 opens played, 5 open top 8s with 1 win that helped propel him to qualifying for the Players' Championship via points in Season 1. Open top 8, 7 wins, 2. We've covered them both. Invitational top 8s and wins. Not yet there for Tomajko, but you know those are probably coming, and apparently has the smartest, coolest, and most awesome little brother in the entire world. How about that?
That's cool.
Absolutely. Member of Team Mythico Studios. Magic is his game, and he is pretty darn good at playing it.
You have an older sibling, right?
I have an older brother, yes.
Do you think he would describe you as the smartest, coolest?
No. I'll cut you off right there. No.
Okay.
No, he would not. Oliver doing his little bro solid right there.
Mm-hmm.
Zan, Edgar, you're on tap. They're going to be coming up here soon. Matthias and Emma will be bringing you that match. We expect it to be a somewhat lengthy affair. Those two players are great, but they have 3 grindy matchups in front of them.
And we are in hour 2 of this one.
Yes,
so
we are.
You might be a while.
Rumor has a table for 2 at the local Carrabba's.
We have to call ahead, right? This is one of those spots.
I wonder what the Carrabba's looks like right when the football games tip. What if it's a madhouse like a Buffalo Wild Wing would be?
Yeah, that was sort of a Hell World experience that I had here. Was it here? Just we went to the Carrabba's, and everywhere we went on our way to the Carrabba's, people were telling us how lucky we were to be going to Carrabba's.
So that was the first invitational.
Mm-hmm. This is like the driver, people waiting with us.
They got great food, man.
He's like, I could just sit here and smell the bread all day long.
I'm about to.
I'm like, I need to get out of here.
Some good eats, and we're about to watch some good beats. That's how I like to spend my Sundays. Little Eli for you, Baker for me.
Yeah.
It's going to be a day. We're going to crown a champion here, too. Someone's getting a title belt. Looks like Dylan's going to send it back. Not happy with what he saw. Keep in mind, Donegan is going to be on the play here for Game 3. For it all. Donegan, his goal is to make day number 3 a competition. Of course, he wants to win this thing, but he's made his first checkpoint. He was so laser-focused all day yesterday. He had quite the journey to get here in day number 3 of competition.
Had the toughest day 2 of anyone, for sure. Edgar and Oliver mostly cruised through. Mm-hmm. They locked their spots up pretty early. Zan at least was on the top side of the bracket for a little while. Didn't have to play quite as many single elimination matches. For Donegan, all yesterday was high-pressure single elimination matches against some of the SCG Tour's best. He was able to grind through it. Now he's here, game away from advancing to the finals against the consensus strongest technical player in the field.
Top card goes to the bottom, underway, Game 3. It's a forest to start. We're heading over to Tomajko. Tomajko with a breeding pool that enters the battlefield tap. Back to Donegan. Leafkin Druid pass the turn back. No blue mana yet here for Dylan. Tomajko has a forest. He'll kick it back over to Donegan. Donegan with a blast zone. This is a Ceratops. That's resolving, most likely. Can be Ether Gusted, of course. But this puts Tomajko under the gun right away if it's on the battlefield. Oh boy. You can see that reaction.
I mean, if he's got an Aether Gust and it's close, I got to imagine the other thing to be considering here is Growth Spiral into some good 4s.
Mm-hmm. Ceratops is in. So is Growth Spiral. Draw. Land, Castle Vantress. Let's untap. Let's draw. Does he have land 4? Donegan waits patiently. There is a forest. Two mana, Paradise Druid. So no need to fear a Nightpack Ambusher. Okay, in with the Ceratops. 5 damage is going to come across. Tomajko down to 15. Where do we go next? Ooh, Donegan just passes. Looks like he might need the Ceratops to do all the work. Brazen Bar was going to bounce the Leafkin Druid.
And this is a window for Tomajko to resolve anything he wants with Donegan not having blue mana.
Big great spot for Nissa, who's got it. 4. Oh boy. Oh boy. There is Nissa who shakes the world. The Planeswalker's going to come down. He'll untap a basic forest. He's going to come in here for 3 points of damage. Donegan's going to fall down to 17, and he can leave the shields up with Nightpack Ambusher now. Donegan's going to draw. He knows he's in some trouble. That Leafkin Druid being bounced. Here comes Ceratops. Ceratops can't finish that thing off yet, though. Here is Leafkin Druid past the turn. There's Nightpack Ambusher, and now it's starting to be a runaway here for Oliver Tomajko. He's found another copy of Nissa, but his one Nissa that he was able to deploy snuck on through.
You saw Oliver go into the tank on that second turn. Still don't know if it was an Aether Gust or something else, but I think with Donegan signaling an absence of blue mana with his opening there, that he just wanted to get out in front of mana as fast as possible while Donegan was incapacitated, and he got paid off with this board.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Donegan will draw. It might be his last draw step of the tournament, and it is. Oliver Tomajko going to win this game and match here over Dylan Donegan, 2-1. Simic Flash will take care of Simic Ramp, and for Tomajko, maybe the consensus best technical player in the room,